I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Book. We spent 2 hours with Randy Bachman talking about all things Guess Who, Burton Cummings, the Beatles, and we covered a lot of ground. And this is the podcast of that conversation. You can get this in podcast form or in video form, but it's an interesting chat. It's the third time I've had a chance to talk to Randy Bachman. Here's our chat. Enjoy. Halfway through the interview, you said your name out loud. You said you said Bachman, and I'm going during the interview going, oh my God, we've all been saying it wrong. And he's being very polite because I introduced you as Bachman because everyone thought Bachman Turner Overdrive sounded better. And so everyone decided somehow that that was your name. Why don't you correct people?
When we signed with Mercury Records in Chicago, the head guy was German. His name was Charlie Fach, F-A-C-H, Fat. We call him Fach. So when he sent out our bio, he put Bachman Turner, he put B-O-C-K so you could sell. In German, it's Bachman, right? It's like Bachman Turner Overdrive, that kind of. In England, it's real quick. It's Bachman Turner Overdrive. In Canada, it's Bachman, and in the States, it's Bachman. So I'm used to this name. I used to say I'm Randy Bachman from Bachman Turner Overdrive. That kind of says it all.
Well, one last thing on that. Glenn, the lead singer of LRB, Glenn Shorrock, who's Glenn Shorrock in the U.S. I interviewed him. Kasim Sultan with Todd Rundgren. He says, everyone screws up my name. Bernie Leadon, I talked to him, and he says, everyone says Leadon until now. The Eagles are so freaking big. And then, of course, Glenn Frey, Glenn Frey. So it happens all the time, obviously.
How about Ray Davies? He says, my name's Ray Davis.
Yeah.
They don't do Ray Davies in England.
Someone had asked, when you guys went to England in the early days, did you get a chance to meet them? Someone had thought you had met the Kinks.
Oh, we met everybody. When we went there in 1967 with a Guess Who before we had a big splash, Burton Cummings had just joined the band. Everyone was just starting. So Hendrix had just got there. Cream had just started. Clapton had quit the Yardbirds. The Who were going with Happy Jack and My Generation. The Stones were going still with Brian Jones. The Crawdaddy Club, the Bag of Nails, the Marquee Club. We went to all of those. And we were with Terry David Mulligan. I'm sure you know him. He was a DJ in Regina. He became Much Music. He was there just as a buddy. And all afternoon, we'd go to all these clubs because we knew the bands were there setting up. They're going to play that. So we'd go at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and they'd be there hauling in their amps. And the Marquee Club, which is the size of your bedroom, little club. But the Who would set up in there with their amps, and we would see them rehearse and sound check and got to meet all these guys. It was an amazing time. It was absolutely amazing. It was like everybody's. Meanwhile, Monterey's going on in 1967 in California. To be in London at this time was just unbelievable.
But you had mentioned before that it was sort of an anticlimactic thing as far as getting the Guess Who getting the band to break through there. What was your feeling coming back?
Well, we never broke through. We got shafted by the British Mafia, and we had no gigs. We had no money. We had three rooms in a hotel, the Regent Palace, right on Piccadilly Circus there. So I got the band together. I said, okay, it's time for a communal effort here. How much money do you have? How much money did we bring? Because we wanted to buy Shadows records and stuff. So we pool all our money and say, look, we don't want to go home with our tail. We left because we were going to be the Beatles, right? Or like insane. We aren't the Beatles. Nothing happened. We got shafted. So let's put all our money together. Let's check out of our rooms. Let's get one room. So they have little beds in England, little single beds. Push the beds together. We'll tie them together. We'll sleep sideways on the beds, like head, and put our feet on a chair or on a move over a dresser. So the four of us could sleep on a bed. But Gary Peterson and I were normal guys, and Jim Cale and Burton were the night guys. So we would sleep in the bed at night. And if they were getting home at 5 or 6 in the morning, we'd be getting up and going out to see London. They'd be coming home to sleep. So we pooled our money. We stayed there maybe about a week. And in that week, I had an idea why don't we go and see the guys at Mills Music? Because we knew nobody there. But Mills Music had published Shakin' All Over, written by Johnny Kidd, and we had the hit with Shakin' All Over. Yeah. So go into Mills Music, we meet the main guy. His name is Tony Hiller. He welcomes us in. He says, you guys are really great. I'm doing a session in 4 days would you record 2 songs by these songwriters of mine? Because I'm the publisher and I picked 2 songs. And I said, do we get paid? He said, no, but bring 2 of your songs and will you have 2 songs free? Well, wow. So I say to Burton, do you have a song? He said, I don't have these songs. This is 1967. I said, let's do Neil's song, Flying on the Ground is Wrong. So we were the first band to ever record a Neil Young song, which I had from an acetate Neil gave me of Buffalo Springfield, which Neil isn't even singing. Stephen Stills is singing it on the Buffalo Springfield thing. And then I wrote a song instantly called There's No Getting Away From You. We recorded the song, it's called This Time Long Ago. And when we came back to Quality Records in Toronto, we recorded at Regent Sound and John Lennon was just there. And here's his drawing that was on the wall. And we got this song called This Time Long Ago that sounds like the Fortunes. You got your trouble, I got mine. And we got this other song that Neil Young song, Flying on the Ground. And suddenly we were a big success. We turned that into the failure into a success because we came home with nothing.
That's crazy.
Came home 40 grand in the hole,
Yeah.
which in 1967 was huge antic money. And out of the blue, we got back to Winnipeg. All our gigs had been canceled because we're going to England. We're touring the world. We come home after 2 weeks. We owe Gar Gillis, who did Garnet Amps, like 10 grand. We owe Air Canada 10 grand. And we owe the Stag Shop because we all went and got new suits like the Beatles, 10 grand. My phone rings and it's a guy that says, can you read music? And I say, of course. Well, I can't, but you say you can. And he says, my name's Larry Brown. I work at CBC. We're looking for a house band to just play the hits. The show's called Let's Go. You need to play the hit parade and you need to sound like, I've been to your dances. You sound, when you play a record, you sound like the record. I said, great. He said, come in Monday. Well, I'm going to give you charts. I said, who's doing the charts? He said, Bob McMullen. I knew Bob McMullen. So I, hey, Bob, this is Randy Bachman. Do you have the charts done yet? You know, how are you going? I'm not saying I can't read music. I think, what charts have you done? We're going to do 6 songs. He said, yeah, I've done Last Train to Clarksville. I've done Happy Together. I go, oh, great. Anything else? He said, well, I haven't done these 2. I call Bert and I say, pool our money. How much money you got? $3 for it. Let's go buy these singles. We'll learn them. So when they put the sheet music in front of us on Monday, out comes Happy Together, out comes Last Train to Clarksville. And Larry came and he said, you can't read a note, can you? And I said, no. And he said, but you sound like the records and you got the gig. And we did that TV show for 2 years. Let's Go Music Hop. It got us out of the hole. It paid us $2,200 a week because it was on every Thursday. Remember, Anne Murray was on Monday. Montreal was Tuesday. Ottawa was Wednesday with Alex Trebek as the host. Winnipeg was Thursday. And Vancouver, and sometimes they would parlay with, hook up with Calgary, was on Friday. That was on every night of the week on CBC. And all the kids across Canada saw a Canadian band every day after school at 4:30. It was amazing. We then had to learn 10 or 12 songs a week, which put it in the Beatle mode. Remember when they decided to stay home, they'd go in every day to the studio and record. And let's do this in a different tempo. Let's do this in a different key. And that was our chops. Burton learned to double his vocals. I learned to double my guitars. And out of that comes These Eyes and American Woman, from going into the CBC and rehearsing every single day for 2 solid years. And then doing our own gigs at night on weekends.
I'd heard that, you guys, I was watching a lot of your interviews the last few days where you had said that basically we're in Winnipeg. We were meeting on the bus. We were, Burton was there, Gary Peterson was there, even Neil Young was on there. Did you know each other then, or did you get to know each other then?
Everybody knew everybody then because I would get on the bus with a little harmony amp and a Silvertone guitar and a gunny sack. And Neil Young would go, is that an amp? Can I borrow that amp? I don't have an amp. Oh yeah, you can borrow the amp. Gary Peterson would get on with a set of drums, which then was just a big round case because you put your bass drum and then your tom-tom went inside. You had a thing called a trap case where your snare went in and there was a lid that went on top with all your hardware and your sticks. So you had 2 drum cases. We'd go to the back of the bus. Halfway downtown, Fred Turner would get on the bus with his guitar. He's going to a gig. And we hoped that at the gig, we met a friend with a car who would drive us home because the buses stopped running at 11 o'clock, and my dad didn't even have a car. So we met on the buses a lot because I was in one end of town, Neil Young was in the other, Burton was in another, and the buses would go downtown and you'd have to transfer. So you'd get off the bus at Eaton's or the Bay, get on another bus and go to the other end of town, and they would be doing vice versa.
Can you relate to that earlier version of yourself? Or are you introspective like that? Can you go back
Oh,
and see that kid on the bus?
yeah.
What would you tell him?
Well, it was amazing. I just learned Apache, Man of Mystery, Rebel Rouser. Then you didn't even sing. You had an amp you plugged in. The drummer didn't have any mics. He set up the drums. You put up an amp. You plugged in a bass and a guitar. I played Dwayne Eddy and Shadows and Ventures for 3 hours. Then you do Sleepwalk. Everyone would waltz. And then you get a lead singer who has his own amp and he plugs into an amp. Nobody had PA systems.
Yeah.
So you have a mic and an amp? Yeah, you play guitar. Do you want to sing? Do you know Party Doll? Do you know Shaking All Over? Do you know Whole Lot of Shaking? Do you know Don't Be Cruel? Yeah, we know all those. Okay, same key as the record. We just show up and play. And maybe get $4 or $5, which was not enough to pay our bus fare or anything, or even take a taxi. We did it because we just were crazy. We just wanted to do it.
I don't know if you know Stu Ferguson from CFUN days.
Sure.
I used to work at CFUN. I worked at CFUN for quite a few years. I actually still work in that building, even though I'm in Moncton. I still work at their building in downtown for Move 103. But Stu says, ask him about Daryl B, the CFUN studios, and taking care of business. What happened?
Well, I wanted to write this song way back in the 60s called White Collar Worker. It was about Stanley Greenberg, who was an engineer at Scepter Studios. We were signed to Scepter. Shaken Over was on Scepter Records. Scepter Records was owned by Florence Greenberg, who was a Jewish lady, very smart. She wrote Soldier Boy. She managed the Shirelles. Her and Paul Cantor managed Dionne Warwick and the Kingsman Louie Louie. When Shaken All Over was on the charts, we went and did the Kingsman Louie Louie tour. We recorded at Scepter Records. The people who pitched us songs at Scepter were Ashford and Simpson. They were like black teenage kids who'd play hooky on Friday and come and play us songs. Bacharach and David, Burt Bacharach had just graduated from Juilliard. They're pitching us songs. We're saying, we don't do these kind of songs. These are black R&B, and you're like weird Juilliard pop. We're like a rock, prairie rock. We're like country rock from the prairies. And but Stanley Greenberg was her son, and he engineered our sessions. He was blind. So I said, how did this blind guy, how does he turns the knobs, he great ears, obviously. And I said to him, why do you leave the studio every night at like 10 o'clock? He said, I take the train home. I said, what do you mean take the train home? Like in Winnipeg, you take a train to Grand Beach. You don't take a train home. You take a bus home. And he said, I can't afford to live in New York. Your mother owns a label in the studio. Yeah, but I'm on my own. Okay, where do you go? I go to Grand Central Station. I want to come with you, because every day to work he would wear, this is in August in New York, 90, right? 90 above, 90 humidity. We're all wearing cutoffs and flip-flops. He comes in a white button-down shirt, a tweed tie, a tweed jacket with leather patches on the elbows. And I say, Stanley, it's so hot out there. Why do you dress like that? And he says, I want to dress like George Martin. He's the best producer in the world. I want to look like George Martin. I know he always wears this or a smock coat, but he always wears a tweed coat. I said, look, I want to come with you. I'm going to write a song called White Collar Worker about you, because you always wear a white button down. So I walk with him that night. He leaves at 10 o'clock at night. I say, how do you get there? How do you get to Grand Central Station from 254 West 54th Street, which is where Scepter Records was? And he says, oh, you count steps. I go, are you kidding? So he has a white cane. He said, don't try to help me. I've done this all my life. You go there, he counts, and he's tapping. He counts 256 steps. We get to a crossway and it's beep, beep. You can cross. He turns that way and he walks on, and we end up at Grand Central Station. But the streets are empty. They're just empty because it's 10:30 on a Monday night and everyone's in Madison Square Gardens or in the theaters. In a half an hour, they're all going to be getting out, but it's empty. So I get to Grand Central with him. I go, there's nothing. I was going to write a song about you, Stanley, but there's nothing here to write about. When do you come back in? He says, I take the 8:15 back into the city. And I go, ka-ching. So I go to meet him the next morning at 8:15, and all the girls are on the train, and they're doing their makeup. And then when the train lands at Grand, they run out to Moni of New York or some insurance company, and they're all trying to look pretty. If the train's on time, then you started work at 9. If the train's on time, you can get to work by 9. Now everybody starts at 10. Then you started at 9. School started at 9. Everything started at 9. And so I write this first verse. But my hook goes, white collar worker. I'm trying to copy Paperback Writer, Day in the Life of Johnny Be Good, or the paper, Sir, Madam, won't you read my book? So I play that song for the Guess Who, and for Burton, and they say, great lyrics, but you got to change your white collar worker thing. We're going to get sued by the Beatles. I mean, that is like a blatant thing, because the song went along just like it did, just like Johnny Be Good or Sir, Madam, which would have got to a hook, everything stopped. We'd white collar worker, worker, just got to do that cascading vocal. So we come home from there. Many years later, I'm now with BTO. We're playing in North Vancouver, 5 50-minute sets a night. We're killing ourselves 6 nights a week. And I'm driving over on a Saturday night, and Daryl B's on the radio. It's Daryl B on C-Fun Radio. We're taking care of business. And I go, oh, what a song title, Taking Care of Business. That's amazing. So I write it down, because you got to write everything down or you forget it. The great dream you had last night, you'll forget it. So I write down Taking Care of Business. We get to the gig that night. It's our 6th night in a row. Fred Turner has sung 5 50-minute sets a night. And halfway through the night, Saturday night, he comes and says, I can't sing anymore. You got to sing the last set. So he's saying, I can't sing anymore. You got to sing the last set. So all I sang was a Dave Crosby song. It's been a long time coming. I sang She Belongs to Me, Bob Dylan. I sang songs you didn't need to be a singer for. I sang Neil Young, Down by the River. Be on my side, I'll be on. It's really easy to do that. Suddenly I've got to sing. It's the last set on a Saturday night. And the club owner's going, get them up dancing, right? He's looking at the watch, and it's the last call. He wants everybody up dancing. They turn up the heat. They give you peanuts. You get thirsty. You buy more booze. They shut down. You stay and drink. The band plays. We get up to play. All I could say is to Turner and the band, there's only 3 of us, the band, me, Robbie, and Fred. So it's real easy. I say, just play an A, Fred. I'm going to do Oye Como Va, the Santana song, which is on the radio. We got to get them up dancing. And I don't know what I'm going to do next. So I go, dun, 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 dun. And I don't know any Spanish. My mother's Ukrainian. So I was starting to sing, Oye Como Va, pierogies, Oye Como Va, halapchi. I'm singing all these. People are laughing because they know I don't know Spanish. They don't know Spanish, but they all understand pierogies and halapchi and stuff. So as that song is going on, a light comes on in my head. And it says, what are you going to do next? They're up dancing. The promoter's going like this, keep them going like TV talk, keep them going. Another 20 minutes to go. And a light comes on in my head and says, now's your big chance for White Collar Worker. The Guess Who passed on it for 3 albums. Brave Belt passed on it for 2 albums. They passed on it for BTO 1. Now's your chance. I sing the verses. They get up in the morning from the alarm. When I get to the hook, I don't do the White Collar Worker. I just did what Daryl B said, taking care of business. And I go, wow, this fits, taking care of business. And I sing to the band, sing it, sing it. We get to it the next time, they sing it. I miraculously answer them every day, every way. It's all mine and working overtime. Boom. Unbelievable. Crowd goes crazy. We stop the song. They keep it going. They know we're making this up on stage. It's like when I made American Woman up on stage outside of Toronto. They sense this jam session going on that's coming from the gods somewhere. The gods of music are coming. And so we do that song. I go to sing it a couple of weeks later in the studio, and Fred says, I'm sick of you doing these bad Bob Dylan and pierogi songs. Why don't you just sing this song on the album and give me a real break? You'll be my pinch hitter, my pinch singer. So I sing it once on the record, period, once. And I figured, no big deal. I've got a sore throat. It's January, February. I'm in Seattle. It's bad. Who cares? It speeds up and slows down. I don't care. There's a knock at the door when we're all done. This is at K Smith Studios. And there's a guy there about 6 feet tall, frizzy hair, frizzy beard, wearing an army suit. And he's got 3 pizzas. And he said, you guys order pizza? And I say, no. Try down the hall. Steve Miller's in B. War's in Studio C. We're BTO, we're in 1. He comes back 5 minutes later. He said, yeah, I got rid of the pizza. I've been listening to this song, Taking Care of Business is playing. Listening to the song through the door. It sounds like it could use a piano. I said, yeah, I know Little Richard. I know Elton John. They're in LA right now at a big party. And he says, I'm a piano player. Give me a break. Give me a shot, please. And I go, come on. At 2 in the morning, man, we've been here since noon. We're dead. Just one take. I give him one take, he plays it. He said, what should I play? Like I said, play a mix of Elton John, Little Richard, and Dr. John. So when you hear the piano taking care of it, the first verse is like Dr. John. The second verse is like Little Richard. The third one is like, Elton John. He did one take and went home. I didn't even hear it back. We were so tired. We came in the next day. The head of our label, Charlie Fash, flew in and said, I want to hear the album. I said, you're a day early. We haven't even got it done. I said to the engineer, when you play him the album, this is BTO2, play him Let It Ride. I knew that was like a radio song. And then TCB was buried, second last track on the second side. And I said, take the piano down because we hadn't heard it back. So as he's playing the whole album, he gets to halfway through TCB, he pushes the piano up. And then comes the piano. And Charlie jumps out of his chair and goes, that's amazing. BTO with the piano, you're going to get Elton real estate. I said, what does that mean? You're going to get played on AM and FM. Elton's all over AM and FM. You're going to get real estate on Top 40 radio. That's what I want for you guys, Top 40 airplay. Let me hear the whole track. We play him the whole track. He goes nuts. He said, this is a real party record. Who played the piano? I say, I don't know. A guy who delivered pizza walked in and played the piano. He said, don't try to create a rock and roll myth, urban legend. Who played the piano? I said, Charlie, I have no idea. This guy came in, he looked like Fidel Castro. He delivered pizza. It was down the hall. We didn't even get the pizza. I don't even know the name of the pizza place. He said, you got to find out. The guy's got to be in the union. We got to get his permission. This record, you're going to be playing this song the rest of your life. Okay. I go down the hall. I ask Steve Miller and the guys in War, where'd you get the pizza from? Well, when you're in a studio and you go home, Tinkerbell comes in and cleans up. So all your Chinese food and your stuff is gone. You have a clean studio the next day. Nobody knows where the pizza came from. So I go to the girl at the front of the studio and I say, okay, here's the yellow pages. You start at Antonio's. I'll start halfway through at Mario's. Phone all the pizza places within 2 blocks of the studio and see if they delivered pizza here last night. I get lucky and about my third phone call because it's like The Simpsons. Hi, do you have a guy that looks like Fidel Castro with a big beard and an army suit? And it's like Moe's phoning Moe's bar, and then you hang up, right? Is Seymour Hair there? And you hang up. He says, yes, we do have a guy like that. You mean the piano player? I said, yeah, he plays piano. What's his name? We can't give out an employee's name. Is he working today? Yes, at the end of the month. He works at the end of the month, delivers pizza. Other than that, he's playing piano. Send him down with a pizza, any pizza. We just want to meet him. He comes down. His name is Norman Durkee. That's the piano you hear and taking care of business.
I thought that was an urban legend.
It is now. It's a legend. And when I played with Ringo Starr's All-Star Band in '95, we ended the tour at the Greek Theater in LA, and the rehearsal pianist for the LA Philharmonic was Norman Durkee. Same guy. It was amazing.
So we did okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
He also was Bette Midler's musical director on her first North American tour, way back in the 70s.
Yeah.
So he did okay.
Do you get asked about that song more than, or is it American Woman? What do you get asked the most?
That, American Woman, and You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet,
Yeah.
which were all 3 mistakes. All 3 of them were instantaneous mistakes that no matter how hard you try to craft a tune, you're crafting a tune. When it falls in your lap and you go, wow, this looks amazing. Do you like this? Oh, we love it. We love it. We love it. It's cool. It's fun. You can sing along. You can dance with it. People like the mistakes. I like a lot of the Beatles mistakes. I'm a Beatle fan maniac. And the stuff that they did by accident, that John Lennon trying to sound like the Dalai Lama swinging on a swing at the top of Tibet and Tomorrow Never Knows, and how they achieved that stupid request makes the whole song. It's amazing. So yeah, I get asked about those songs all the time.
Okay, you're at the dentist's office and someone sees you there and turns around and they're curious about you. They ask you, hey, mister, what do you do for a living? What do you say?
Anything I want.
No, you don't tell them. You don't tell them you're a musician.
No, at the border, like going into England. I used to have a big flat in England, Covent Garden. What do you do, sir? I'm a songwriter. What's that? I write songs. What have you written? These Eyes Laughing, She's Come Undone, No Time, No Sugar, American Woman, Let It Ride, 4-Wheel Drive, Looking Up for Number 1, Taking Care of Business, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. I have 12 hits. I'm called the 12-Hit Wonder. That's my business company. It's called 12-Hit Wonder. So I've had a dozen hit songs, 6 with each band. And when I name those off, ka-ching, they know who I am. They know I'm a real singer. I'm coming there to write songs. I'm not being paid because I'm not working in it. I'm sitting down with someone and creating a song.
Well, yeah, Of course. What
And
do you
I
mean?
never use the word rock star. I hate that. I don't know who made that up. I'm a musician and I'm a songwriter. And that's what I've been doing since I was 5 years of age. And that's all I do.
I like what Lenny Bro told you when we talked back when you released the jazz thing album, the jazz album rather. You said that he had told you, you know, there'll always be a better guitarist. Learn to write songs or improve or whatever. That hit a lot of people when I put that up on YouTube. A lot of people said, you know what, that's the most simplistic thing in the world. I don't know why. There's always a faster guitarist. There's always a better drummer. But you listened.
It's the Wild West. The gunslinger comes into town and kills the sheriff, or a new sheriff comes in and kills the bad guy. There's always a faster gun. And this was way back in the 60s, right? When I'm hanging out with Lenny Bro. Now you can go on YouTube and the world's fastest guitar players are 11 years old and they're in Korea and they're doing all these Steve Vai, Eddie Van Halen stuff because it's all there. I had none of that available. I had to buy a record and play it over and over and over and over and figure out, where do you go to find these notes? Where do I go to find these notes? Down there, up there. Oh, it's easier up there. And then you've had to figure out, you bought a record and you learned it frontwards and backwards, A and B side, and then you traded it like a comic book. I would trade Susie Q to my friend and get Hound Dog and Don't Be Cruel at A and B side. And then I would trade that to somebody else and get Guy Mitchell, Crazy with Love and Singing the Blues. You learned all the A and B sides. You learned who wrote them. And then you traded them. And then magically you bought an album that had those 3 singles on, 3 B sides, and maybe 3 or 4 more songs for $3.98, which is cheaper than buying singles.
Did your dad ever sit you down when you were a kid, as you were, you know, he knew you were on that track? Did he ever do the Randy, we got a chat thing before you gained success? Was there ever a time where he
No, when I was 5, my parents said, to get out of this ghetto, it's like a black kid, you buy him a hoop and a basketball. We lived in the Ukrainian ghetto of Winnipeg on the outskirts, West Kelowna. To get out of here, you got to do a sport and you got to do an instrument. What do you want to play? What instrument do you want to play? Oh, I'd like to play drums. Oh, they're too noisy and too big and too expensive. Oh, I'd like to play piano. Too big, too noisy, too expensive. How about a violin? Okay. They gave me a little half-size violin. At 5, I start to play classical violin, Royal Conservatory, where you're standing here and you're playing like Beethoven and Bach and Chopin and all this kind of stuff. And I found it as a kid, at age of 3, I could sing songs. My mother would always sing to the radio. I would sing with her. So I had a great, and the thing about violin, all you play in a violin is melody. It's like a flute. You can't play harmony. On violin, you can play harmony, but you can't on a flute. You play the lead line. So I start to play classical violin from age of 5. And every morning I had to get up at 7 and practice for 1 hour till 8. I had my cornflakes. I ran to school. After school, I had to practice a half an hour before I could put on my old jeans, because then you had jeans for school and old jeans you played hockey in or baseball. Go and play till 6 till Dad came home and practice. I learned to practice. Burton Cummings, same thing, started piano at 5. Gary Peterson started drums at 5. We had a practice regimen. By the time we hit teenagehood, we'd hit our tipping point. We already done 10,000 hours. You want to be in a band? Do you know these songs? Yeah, I know these 300 songs. I can play them like the record. Oh, other guys are learning chords. We're learning Sgt. Pepper's. You know what I mean? We're learning Good Vibrations. We're learning stuff like that. So when the Guess Who started, we were all really incredible musicians. And one day I figure out I can't read music. I'm playing by ear. My violin teacher, I'm now 12 or 13. My violin teacher says, you're good enough to join the Winnipeg School Symphony. They're looking for a second violin. So go to this, there's going to be 80 guys there. Go to this school, which is where Neil Young went to school. It's at Calvin High. I had to take a bus there. And you go in and your second violin, here's the song that you're going to play. And it was called Sardas. S-C-Z-A-R-D-A-S. I go there and I'm playing with the symphony and I'm like trying out for second violin. And we get to a certain spot and I play a note and they'll stop playing. The conductor taps the thing. Bar 32, second violin. It's an E flat, not an E natural. Let's take it from the top. We take it from the top. We get to the same place. I play the same note. He says, second violin, can you play an E? I play an E, which is the an open string on the violin. He says, can you play an E flat? I didn't know how to play an E flat. You can't go any lower when it's an open string. I didn't realize they start again on the last string of cascade down. I just played by ear. So the whole symphony is laughing at me in tears. I pack up my violin. I say, I'm quitting. I'm never going to play violin again. This is Saturday morning. I go home. The next day on Ed Sullivan, I see Elvis and I go, what's that? It's a guitar. It's rock and roll. It's wild. I want to do that. Who do you know with a guitar? Oh, your cousin has a guitar. Bam, I get a guitar. I play lead on a guitar. That's what I played on violin. I hear a band in Winnipeg called Ellen and the Silvertones needs a rhythm guitar player. Jim Cale called me, the bass player, and says, can you learn the rhythm to all these Shadow songs and Ventures and Dwayne? I said, of course. I go to the first rehearsal. I'm playing rhythm. The lead guitar player breaks a string. I finish playing lead. And they go, you play great lead. You want to be lead guitar? I said, that's why I came. I played lead ever since. I'm shaking all over and I'm still playing lead guitar.
So having played the violin, though, I mean, and pardon my ignorance, but everyone says the violin's incredibly hard to play. But having been a violin player, was that like a real kickstart into guitar?
Yeah, because you play melody and you learn to play with guys. You end up playing alone or with a pianist who's accompanying you, or you play in a string quartet or a string quintet, which is like a bass, a cello, a viola, or two violas, and a violin, or two violins and one. So you learn to play in an ensemble. You learn to listen to other parts, and you learn to listen. I am the top line, which is what they call dance guys. I'm the top line. I am the leader of this thing. Whatever I play, these guys follow. I go up, I play faster and harder. They play faster and harder. I'm the Duke Ellington up there who's like directing the band, or the Elvis or whatever. I've just had a miraculous life that has led. And in grade 1, I've been playing for a year now. I'm 6 years old. Grade 1, the teacher has to do, there's 35 kids in a room. She has to do a seating plan. So she goes to row 1, seat 1. What's your name? What do you want to be when you grow up? And what does your dad do? Well, my name is Iris Freeman. I want to be a nurse. My dad is a doctor. My name is Randy Bachman. I'm a musician. But what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm a musician. Yes. What does your dad do? He makes eyeglasses. What do you want to be when you grow up? I'm a musician. I run home in tears. This is the first day of school. I run home in tears. I lived a block and a half from the school. I run home from the school. My mother's doing the laundry. Are you out of school already? I said, that's it. I quit. She said, what do you mean? I said, the teacher keeps asking me a question, and I think I keep getting it wrong. I don't want to ever go back to school. She said, it's the first day of school. You got 12 years of this. Get used to it. She takes me back to school with the violin because I tell her what's going on. And I stand up and play for the class. And the teacher says, class, this is Randy Bachman. He is a musician. From that point on. And then I told you the story. I played that for 12, 13 years till I get fed up with it. Realize I'm playing by ear, because when my teacher would put up a big classical piece, she would play it first and then say, play along with me. And then she'd say, practice this for a week. And I'd say, why? I already know it. I had a phonographic memory. When I heard a record, I learned it. I learned all the guitar. I learned every single part. And so I've had a really blessed life as far as, and I've said this to many people. There's 2 important days in your life: the day you're born and the day you realize why you were born. And I realized that at age of 4 or 5. Music, music, music. Give me the blanket. It doesn't matter if I'm thrown out of a band, or I quit, or I'm divorced, or I'm broke, or I'm making no money a night, or I'm making 20 grand or 50 grand a night. It doesn't matter. If there's 2 people there, I play for them, they like it, I'm thrilled.
You know, after all these years and the hardships you've had, and I know what happened when you left the Guess Who, that was a difficult time, being blackballed, leaving this big band, no one would hire you. How did you handle, how does a man handle that? Do you just get up and your legs are more firm on the ground, say, I'll show them? What do you do?
You just never give up. If there's a mountain, you got to climb it or go around it.
Who taught you that? Is that just is that your software, or that you just have that?
Well, when you have a dream, which I had, Burton had, Neil Young had, we're still going. Fred Turner, the 4 horsemen, as they call us, out of Winnipeg, are still riding around the world playing guitar, rocking and rolling. I'm playing with Burton in July. We're doing a big tour. I'm going with my own band in April, doing my sit down every song tells a story tour. It's what you do. When you start doing it at 4 or 5 and practice I still get up and practice 2 hours a day on a guitar. I just did an album with my son Tal called Bachman that's going to be coming out soon. I was told not to do anything that sounded like the Guess Who or BTO or Tal Bachman solo. Create something new. He and I wrote brand new songs. They're quite Americana. I'm playing banjo. My violin, which I expanded to be a viola because it's bigger. I had frets put on it like David Hidalgo in Los Lobos because I need the frets because you're sliding around like a sick little kitten. I had frets put on it. And we did a really incredible Americana album that sounds like the Wilburys, early Eagles, Tom Petty. It really is a great sing-alongable album. We just finished it now. I'm doing my Gretsch documentary, which you might have heard was stolen in 76. We found it in Tokyo. We're waiting to go to Tokyo now to do the switch with Takeshi, who has my orange Gretsch. And I had to find its twin, and I did. I found its sister, made in the same week from 1957. I showed it to him on Zoom, so I'm going to go there with Takeshi to Tokyo, probably play guitar boogie or take care of business or something. And in the middle of the song, hand him the Gretsch I got for him, and he's going to hand me mine back. I will be in absolute breakdown tears because the guitar was kidnapped, stolen in 1978 from the Holiday Inn, 76 Holiday Inn in Toronto, and I never saw it for 50 years.
And you never knew what happened, right? You never knew what happened. Who took it?
No, it was stolen. I went to the OPP, the Mounties, put it everywhere. It was gone. And because of COVID, and I've told this story many times, for fun, Tal and I we had nothing to do. Our gigs were all canceled. We did a thing called Friday Night Trainwreck, Bachman and Bachman. And it was really Wayne's World on steroids because he would show up with 5 or 6 songs that I'd never played because he's like from 2 generations, he's like 25 years younger than me. And I would show up with songs he never played. You've heard them, but you've never really played them or tried to and we would try to stump each other and we would play the wrong chord, the wrong lyrics. We'd start in the wrong key and people loved it because they could see professionals making mistakes just like them. And hundreds and thousands of people would follow our YouTube with a guitar and try and play along and change key with us because they said everything on the radio is perfect. You've done 30 vocal tracks, you pull each lyric or each syllable. Your guitar solo might be a triple and you've comped that solo. We like to hear you guys make mistakes. So in the middle of all this, we're doing one. And when you're doing a live YouTube, up at the side of your screen comes a little thing that goes, nice pants, buddy. Oh, man, that was really a bad chord. And one comes up that says, I found your Gretsch guitar. And
During a live feed?
I say to Tal, find this guy. Who's this guy? A guy named William Long in White Rock who can't even spell the word Gretsch. He doesn't even know what a Gretsch is, but he knows mine was stolen. He does facial recognition. He finds the BTO video of Looking Out for Number One, which is the last time I played that guitar. It's on YouTube. He does a close-up of my orange Gretsch. He puts it on his screen. He then Googles every orange Gretsch sold on the internet in the last 15 years and pulls it down. And mine had a little flaw in it, which was just a piece of the grain of the wood, because Gretsch's are made out of plywood, so a beautiful knot in the wood, and he finds the matching knot. And 2 weeks later, he sends me a thing and says, I found your guitar. It's with a guy named Takeshi. He does not speak English. He's like the Japanese Brian Setzer. He plays rockabilly. He's got your guitar. My son, Tal, his partner is Eriko Yamamoto from Japan 6 years ago. She then emails his website and gets an answer because I can't talk to this guy because he doesn't know English. So Eriko sets up a Zoom with him and his manager. I'm on the Zoom. He brings out my guitar. Literally, I start sobbing. I have not seen this guitar for 50 years. I mowed lawns. I delivered papers. I babysat to get the $400 to buy that guitar. On it, I played Shakin' All Over. I wrote and played These Eyes Laughing, Undone, Taking Care of Business, American Woman, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. That guitar's on every record and it's gone. And I see it and I'm totally verklempt and I'm like sobbing. And it's pretty amazing. And then he says, I'm an honorable man. I did not steal this guitar. I said, I know that you're only 30 years of age. This was stolen 30 years ago, 50 years ago. And he says, but I will give it back to you. I go, what? He says, no, I am honorable. I realize this is your guitar. I knew when I heard this guitar, the guitar spoke to me. Take me home and look after me. I've been looking after this guitar. I've had it for 6 years. I said, that's amazing. He says, but no matter what language you're speaking, because he's speaking Japanese, when he says but, it's like the universal F word. You know what he means. So I said to Erico, what does the but mean? But you must find its sister. He does not want a new guitar from Gretsch. He wants one just like his. It must be made in the same year, 1957. It should have no mods and no repairs. It has to be mint catalog. Are you kidding? Okay, Takeshi, I got it. Click. I call every guitar guy because I've collected 385 Gretches and sold them to Fred Gretsch for his museum, which is now in Savannah, Georgia. I call every guitar guy, find one in Loveland, Ohio. He's got 3 of them. I said, send your best guitar players in, because every guitar player works in a music store, especially in the shutdown. Find the one that has no mods, no repairs, and that sounds good and has the D-arm and pickups with a good case. They find one and send it to me. It's 3 digits off of my serial number, which means it was made in the same week by the same guys in the same place. I do a Zoom with Takeshi. He is verklempt. Now we're going to go and trade the guitars. We're waiting for May to do that so we could travel. We're doing a documentary on this called Lost and Found, the Magical Guitar. In the middle of all this, Tal and I are going to release the album, which we recorded. And I'm going to play the last song on the closing credits on my Gretsch when I get it, called The Magical Guitar, because Tal has told me bluntly, when the guitar was stolen in 76, I lost my magic. I'd written 12 hit songs. And even though I was okay after that with Any Road and recording with Neil Young and doing Prairie Town, I never hit that #1 album and single, which I did twice. And the only other guy that done it is McCartney. 2 different bands, 2 #1 singles and album. And Tal said, if you get it back, you might get the magic back. You might hit #1 again. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but it's a great part of the story. So now it's called Lost and Found, the Magic Guitar. It's like Dumbo's Magic Feather or the Silver Bullet, right? It's the catalyst of the whole thing.
Well, something like that can change the trajectory of your life, even if you don't know it consciously.
Yeah, totally life-changing. And every day, something happens to do with that Gretsch. I did a phone call last week with Takeshi for BBC Radio and BBC Podcast, which when it is on in the middle of February, will reach over 100 million people. All of the UK. This is their special thing, like 60 minutes, a half-hour special, where I tell the story. They've got all the video clips of then and now. They got me playing, she surprised me and said, would you play Mr. Sandman? I said, sure. So I played Sandman. I played Shaking All Over, and Takeshi and I do Taking Care of Business. And it tells the whole story. And now we've got guys in LA that are doing a rockumentary of this, of the whole story of the guitar, because Erico, Tal's partner, Coco, also filmed us for our YouTube and recorded us for sound. She's amazing. So she's recorded every one of these things I've had with Takeshi and Fred Gretsch in Georgia. So we now have really good, she's got a really great camera. We've got this whole thing documented, and they might get somebody really cool to narrate it and interview me, like Kiefer Sullivan or Jeff Bridges, some guy who's an actor, but who's a rocking actor who plays his guitar. So this whole thing is in the middle of evolving, and in the middle, Tal and I will release our album.
This has gotten a life of its own. It's so much bigger now. I mean, poetic justice, you got it at last. But I'm excited about it because I do believe in that kind of thing. I really think that when I look, I have still got my journals here. We just moved to Moncton from Calgary. I've got all my journals. I can see where things change in one's life. And that was a big thing. I know the story about you saving your money. And I mean, that's an amazing thing. When did you know in the Guess Who, when did you know that you guys were going to be okay? I mean,
you never know because you're on the road.
Too busy?
There's no cell phones. There's no internet. You check into a hotel and you say, is there a fax for me? And you get a fax that says 2 o'clock tomorrow at this club, set up, your gig's at 8 o'clock. That's all you had. We had no idea that we had 3 or 4 songs on the top 100. We couldn't afford a Billboard magazine. We're still all sleeping in a hotel room with 2 beds. 2 beds and a cot. The guy who won the toss got the cot. The losers got 2 guys had to sleep with each other, for God's sake. So we could have 1 room in a hotel, basically eating. Before we left home, my mother would get a loaf of Wonder Bread, remember that square bread, and make me bologna sandwiches. and freeze them. We'd go on the road, you're hungry, you pull out a bologna sandwich, over for a while it thaws out, you eat it, or peanut butter and jelly. We couldn't afford food. So we knew we hit it when I get the telegram and it says from Don Berkheimer, head of RCA, American Woman album and single are #1 in Billboard. I call the band into my room. We stand on the bed. We jump up and down. We're #1. We're #1. The bed caves in. We go to the next bed because we jump on that till it caves. We go to the gig and play and we say we're #1 and we got paid $750 and stayed on tour.
Yeah.
We kind of knew we made it because by then we had gold records. So you want to get a gold record. These Eyes is gold, then Wheatfield Soul gold, then No Time, American, all these things are #1. And suddenly you hit #1. That's the peak of being in the gold or platinum. You are a #1 for obviously 1 week or maybe 2 weeks because you can't stay there forever. But it was a real incredible pinnacle.
What are your top 3 songs from the Guess Who? I know it's a generic question, but I'm just curious.
I think one of the best songs I ever wrote was She's Come Undone. I also really like No Time. And These Eyes is a magical mystery tour song. It's just amazing. I found out why I wrote These Eyes and how I wrote Undone. And I only found out about six months ago of watching the Zombies. They had a live YouTube and they talked to Rod Argent, who's written some of the greatest songs.
I've talked to him. Yeah.
What an influence Rod Argent was on me writing Undone. With it. Remember that? I realized I've spent 1.5 years in a studio in the 60s with Burt Bacharach, who plays all major and minor 7th chords and weird time signatures. The Zombies, when they did their tour, toured with Dionne Warwick and listened to Burt Bacharach songs for 9 months in England. And when Rod Argent, who's the songwriter, said, I got all my chords that are not rock and roll chords, they're jazz chords from Rod Argent. I go, what? I had the same thing with Burt Bacharach. These Eyes has got like 20 chords in it. Although it sounds like a 3-chord song, it's got jazz chords. And that basically Lenny Breau taught me to play certain bass notes. Or you're playing F major 7. I mean, you go da 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 da. It's an F major 7. You don't play an F bass, you play a G bass. And that's totally John Coltrane stuff, which sounded weird at the time. Now, when you hear it on the radio, it's absolutely charming and a great jazz song. And people don't realize it. The engineer on that whole first album was Phil Ramone, who's Mr. Ears, who then went on to do, McCartney and Billy Joel and thousands of other people, Stevie Wonder and everybody. So it's Phil Ramone's mixing and his ears. And it was his studio, A&R Studios in New York, that we did that.
I had a chance to meet him before we lost him. Amazing, very interesting man. He says people would always ask him, well, just the way you are. And the 10cc thing, how they kind of, I'm not in love. But what about She's Come Undone? That's always been one of my favorite. Can you give me a?
Well, I had these hanging out with Lenny Breau. I saw him play once in Winnipeg. I was 15. I just discovered Elvis. He was 16. He was a year older than me.
Did you know him then?
No, but every day at noon, every Saturday at noon on CKY radio would be the CKY Caravan, which was a live country band from 11:30 to 12:30 at a different car lot. They're selling donuts. The guy's doing a remote. They're selling donuts and they're trying to sell the new Mustang or the new Ford car or truck. So this would be live, and I'd listen to it every Saturday. My mother actually would put it on. And at noon, they would say, we're going to take a break and let Junior play. And out of the radio would come this most amazing guitar music I'd ever heard. And I thought Junior was a band. So 1 week they're playing my end of town, the North End, West Kelowna, right across from West Kelowna Park. I ride my bicycle there. I wait till noon. They all leave the stage. And they say, now Junior's going to play. And this kid who's like 3 inches shorter than me comes over with a big orange Gretsch with Lenny Breau, and he plays Caravan. And I go stand, nobody's standing in front of him. They're all having donuts and coffee. He's playing live on the air. The stage is about 6 inches high. It's on asphalt in the Ford parking lot. I'm looking at him playing, and where's the bass coming? And I see he's playing with his fingers. His thumb's going boom, 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 boom. And he's playing all the 3 parts at once. So after the show, and I stand in front of him. After the show, I go and shake hands. Hi, my name is Randy. Where do you live? He said, I don't live anywhere. We live in that trailer. We just came into town. Oh, how long have you been playing guitar? Since I was 6. Oh, well, you're 60, you've been playing for 10 years. What's that called? What you're playing? I heard Elvis on TV, and it's called fingerstyle. It's called Chet Atkins. I thought it was one word like flamenco. I didn't know the words are named Chet Atkins. So I said, how do I get that? I want to hear more of that. Well, just go to Eaton's or go to your record store and ask for a Chet Atkins record. So I go into the record store. I said, I want to get a Chet Atkins record. And she says, do you mean Chet Atkins? I said, no, Chet Atkins is like flamenco. She said, I think you mean Chet Atkins. She played, that's it, that's it. So I took that home. Then I go to see Lenny 2 weeks later. He says, I now have a house. I live in Garden City. I had just moved to Garden City. I live 2 blocks from him. I said, can I come to your house and watch you? Can you give me guitar lessons? I don't know how to give guitar lessons, but you can watch me. I move the needle and I figure out where to play it on guitar. I'm learning Chet Atkins, Howard Roberts, all this kind of stuff. I play hooky every afternoon for 2 years. When your report card comes, your mother looks at it. You got B's and C's, but it says, this guy's missed 82 afternoons consecutively. And your mother said, something's wrong with this. It says you weren't at school. Sometimes I'd go and then check in and then leave. And I would watch Lenny Bro play. So he taught me 4 or 5 every song, Chet Atkins albums, 1 or 2 Merle Travis albums. Then I start to bring him Chuck Berry. And he'd go, oh, that's really easy. It's like 2 strict. And so I learned it. And then Howard Roberts and Barney Kessel. And in 2 years, I get this vocabulary of playing guitar that is like 10 years of guitar university, all from this kid because we bonded. He had no friends. No, I was his friend. I would go to my girlfriend's house. I had twin girlfriends, Karen and Carol. And I would go to their house for lunch because I couldn't go home. Winnipeg is 40 below, and I lived a mile from school. So I would go to their house with 2, and they lived across from Lenny Bro. So I'd go to their house for lunch. They'd go back to school. I'd go to Lenny's place. So he came friendly with the girls. I was friendly with the girls. He and I were buddies. I learned all those chords from him. And one day I'm in Vancouver, and Burton and I cannot write lyrics to this song. It's too smooth. There's no real hook. There's no real chorus. There's only a little thing. She's come undone. And then you tell the story. And I'm in Vancouver listening to FM radio. It just started then. It's like 67 or 8. And they're playing album cuts. This is just discovered by so-and-so in San Francisco, the father of FM radio. And now we're going off of FM here. We're not playing classical music. We're playing album cuts. And we're going to play the whole side of a Bob Dylan album, a guy I just discovered from Hibbings, Minnesota. And they play this whole side of Bob Dylan, which is very boring. And halfway through a song called Ballad in Plain Day, Bob Dylan said the words, "She came undone." I turned off the radio. I went, "She's come undone," and put all my jazz chords. And then it came. She didn't know what she was headed for. What she found she was headed for. It was too late. The lyrics do not rhyme. It's a pure Rod Argent. And if she should say she loves you, she said those words to me, tell her, no, don't hurt me now because my love, it doesn't rhyme. It's just a great story. So I played for Bert and he goes, wow, congratulations. You've written an amazing song on your own. And because there's no hook or chorus, in the middle, I put that middle part where I do the rising fifth and I do, why did she come undone? Too many mountains, not enough hills to climb. Too many churches, not enough truth. Too many people, not enough eyes to see. Too many lives to lead and not enough time. Everyone was leading 2 lives then, a straight life and a hippie life. Like, do we become a hippie? Do we do drugs? Do we not? And I put that song together and it's just like, every time I play it, it's like, it's magical.
You know, 2 things about American Woman. First of all, how'd you get that guitar sound? And what do you mean when it came as an accident on stage?
Okay, I had a 59 Les Paul, which had a Bigsby on it. So if you know what that is, the string's got to go under this thing, and the Bigsby is like a wang bar. To change the string on that, you need to be a major scientist. You got to lay it down, take off the old string, put the new string on, bend the new string, put it over the bridge, under the bar, over another bar, over onto a little nipple, so your string bead fits on the nipple. We're playing the gig in Kitchener-Waterloo, in a curling rink, which had a bonspiel going. They actually put plywood on the ice. And I'd break a string. And we did 3 sets. So we're near the end of a set. Burton says, Randy broke a string. We've got to take a break. I had no tuner, no roadie, no spare guitar. I then get my guitar, I get a string, I put it on my lap. I'm kneeling on the stage. Burton, I have nothing to tune to. I'm tuning to Burton's electric piano. I'm hitting bang, 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 bang. I'm playing. So when I tune the guitar, it's like this. So I'm playing this on stage, and I start to go. And all the heads in the audience turn around and look at me, and I go, OMG, I got to keep playing this or I'm going to forget it. So I keep playing it. And I look in the audience, we're on a break. Burton's out the back buying comic books from a guy's trunk in his car. I could see outside because it's February and it's a full moon. And you know, Canada in the winter, it's lit up like light blue outside from the full moon. I get the drummer on stage. Gary Petey starts to play. Jim Cale comes on stage. And when we were all done our break and time to start the next set, we'd go and start the next song in the set. And the other guys would drift to the stage because you're talking to friends and family and stuff. We're playing the song. Burton doesn't realize it's us. And somebody says to him, why aren't you on stage with the band? And he goes running on stage. Going, what is this? What is this? I'm jamming. Listen to this riff. I'm sing anything. And he sang American Woman, Stay Away From Me 4 times. That was the song.
That's crazy.
Then he came the next day and he said, I'd like to add some stuff. Can I put in war machines? Because it was Vietnam, they were drafting everybody. Can I put ghetto scenes? We thought we grew up in a ghetto in Winnipeg. It's nothing like seeing a ghetto in Mississippi with guys living in tin shacks on stilts, picking cotton for $1 a bale. The bale was gigantic. It weighed like 50 pounds and they have to pick it for $1. So out came ghetto scenes. The Colored Lights Can Hypnotize of Broadway. And out came this song. Just a total jam, all in one chord.
A lot of people ask me about the stuttering. So many people have come forward to me when I told them I was going to talk to you for actually a 3rd time. Tell me the impetus of that, of all of that.
Well, I produced BTO. I didn't even have a tape recorder at that time. So I produced them on paper with a stopwatch. So I would get a song, we'd do the song, I would time it. Let's move this, play, move that, and I would time every song. So when we went to record, we would just do 8 songs. Everything was economical. Then it had to be on vinyl. Had to be no more than 20 or 21 minutes, or else your level was way too low. So I had all the songs, and every song then had a big intro, 2 guitars, so it was classic rock. So I have these songs all planned out. And because I was the producer and in the band, I'd always have a work song, which we would just go in and jam. So, okay, here's the beat, and then I would say to the engineer, then I'd listen to it back, record it. Let's get the kick drum a little bit more harder. Let's put a cement bag in the car. I mean, a sandbag in the drum. Let's mute the tom-tom. Let's move the bass mic. Here a playback again, here another playback, back and forth. And I did this work track. This was on BTO 3. And I say, I want the beginning of this track to be like Dave Mason, Only You Know and I Know, a nice jangly thing. Or Let Your Love Flow, the Bellamy Brothers. Dang, dang. And so we're playing. And then I want a real heavy monster chorus. And so we play that and I go, great. And to lead the band through it, I don't have a song written. I just make up lyrics. And when it gets to the hook, I don't know what to do because this big power chord, let's do 3 big power chords. I don't know what to say. So I go, baby, you ain't seen nothing yet. And my brother Gary stuttered. So I thought, this is not going to be on the album. It's a work track. I'm going to mix one version on a cassette and send it to him and go, nah, because we teased each other growing up. I had 3 brothers and the pranks and gags we put on each other was unbelievable. So I'm going to send him this going, nah, this is going to be on our album. This was not to be on the album. So Charlie Fatch flies in the next day, again, a day early, and he hears the Not Fragile album. And no, you ain't seen nothing yet, it's not there. He hears 4 songs. He hears Rolling Down the Highway, says, great song. He hears Sledgehammer, great song. He says, I don't hear anything that's going to keep you on top 40 radio. Nothing is as good as Let It Ride or TCB. And the engineer says, there's one more track. And Charlie goes, what? I said, it's the 9th track. It won't fit on the album. We only have 8 on a side. They're like 4 minutes and 10 seconds each. It's 22 minutes a side. He said, play me the song. I play him the song. He goes, that is a monster song. Don't change anything. The way it lifts, when you play it, it just lifts itself off the turntable. And believe me, I discovered Hey Baby for Bruce Chanel. I discovered Tennessee Waltz for Patty Page. This is an old record guy. I discovered Maggie May for Rod Stewart. I discovered this for Sly and the Family Stone. I hired Quincy Jones, blah, 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 blah. You're going to be playing this song and TCB the rest of your life. Put it on the album. So I said, I don't want to leave anything off. He said, that's real easy. Take your 4 longest songs on one side and your 4 shortest and squeeze this one in. So that's the first BTO album with the 9th song. And it came out, it started to get played on radio. I would turn the radio off. The guitar's not in tune. I'm singing flat and sharp and off beat. I would turn the radio off, embarrassed. And it went to #1 in 22 countries. And it was our only million-selling single. And then made the album sell 4 or 5 million copies. So it's another incredible mistake that some angel of song shot an arrow and it hit me in the heart. And I go, yeah, hit me, baby, hit me again. I got hit a couple of times on the new Bachman album songs. I never thought I'd write lyrics like that. Very wonderful, heartfelt, all about the COVID and me growing up with my son in a band and the divorces and bands I've gone through and stuff. It's really a tear-jerking album. You'll stand up and dance and it'll also bring you to tears. It's pretty amazing.
You know, a song that made me stop what I was doing. I remember what I was doing. I was writing. When I heard Let It Ride, I remember turning around because, you know, the way the guitar, that guitar sound, I remember going, what the hell? Because that's to me, I remember thinking, and I wrote it in my journal at the time, I says, that guitar is like sharp like a knife. I remember writing that in my journal. That is an amazing guitar sound, especially in the middle when you do the, you know, you go into that solo thing, when it stops, that's crazy to me. That's like moments in time to me.
Thank you. That came again by accident. I often read that John Lennon would listen to classical music, play it backwards, get the music, and then take the chords where you end up, because you start where you end up usually in a song, and then play the chord and write his songs. And he listened to Philip Glass and all this weird experimental music, the guy smashing a piano with a sledgehammer. So I go out and I buy Anton Dvorak's Piano Concerto in D, which is one whole side of an album, which you get for like $1.98 because it's on some weird classical thing from Holland or something. And near the end of Piano Concerto in D, it goes. So I go. And I take my jazz chords from Lenny Bro, I hammer them off and on. We are driving from Winnipeg to play Mardi Gras down in New Orleans. We get hassled by a bunch of truckers on the road who cut us off and everything. And when we go to a truck stop to have a word with them, me and Turner, who are the big guys in BTO, we're talking to this trucker and he says, we're just playing with you friendly Manitobans, because our license plate said friendly Manitoba. We're just playing a game with you friendly Canadians, see how friendly you are. It's no big deal, buddy. Why don't you just let it ride? I said to Fred, what does that mean? Because I never heard this before. He said, oh, it's a trucker thing for no big deal, like chill out, buddy. So we go down to the dressing room there in New Orleans, and I say to Fred, listen to this. This is from Anton Dvorak's Piano Concerto, and I play the beginning. And I go, let's sing over it. We just go, goodbye, I lied, don't cry, would you let it ride? And then I go to the F sharp minor thing and say to Fred, scream something, scream anything. It's like Sing American Woman. And he said, you can see the morning. And then we answer it. And sharing our dressing room at the time at Mardi Gras, who hears me do this is the Doobie Brothers, who end up going, because I go, I do that little hammer on it.
Long train running, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then you see, in those days, you had 3 guitars, a Gretsch, a Gibson, and a Fender, because you only had 1 amp. There was no foot pedals. Nothing got you your tone except your guitar. You want to sound like Dwayne Eddy or what, Chet Atkins? You use the Gretsch. You want to sound like Les Paul or Clapton, and you want to sound like Hendrix, you use a Strat. my amp sounded the same. So I plugged it right into the board, an API board, and got that really neat, clean sound, but it sounded too small. So I played it up high where I just played it. Then I played the same A chord down on the 5th fret. I'm playing it there on the 9th fret. I played it on the 5th fret. So it sounded like a 12 string. So the extra note on top, an extra note on the bottom. Then I had a Martin D35 that's real boomy, a Martin Guitarist for playing bluegrass and picking. So it really booms. I covered the sound hole with paper and taped it up so it was just a dead sounding guitar. So that's mixed in with 2 Strats and that Martin guitar, and it gets you that beautiful, clean, it's not overly bright, it's just a nice sheen on that song, which starts it. And then the song ended in the studio. And I look at my brother, I went, keep going. And I played it again, and I start the intro again. And so he does the drum roll and it comes in again. I say to Fred, do ooze over it. And I get my Les Paul and I go gong, 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 which is my American Woman tone on the guitar. And it makes a whole little, it's like a classical piece out of this rock thing because I'm thinking Anton Dvorak, right? Another movement comes after the move. So that song was pretty magical. And in the middle, because we played down south a lot in Mardi Gras, we played with the Allman Brothers a lot. And Wet Willie and Charlie Daniel then was a guitar band before he went into the fiddle. There's a lot of guitar harmony in that second BTO album. We were playing 2-part harmony like the Allman Brothers, like Dickie Betts and Dwayne Allman. So in the middle of Let It Ride, when you hear the album version, it's almost 5 minutes long. We're going try, let it ride. We're doing all this stuff. And I listened to that stuff recently. We were really a cool band for BTO 1, 2, and 3. And then they wanted more commercial stuff. So you try to stay on top 40 radio, and you lose a little bit of your soul, or you're digging into yourself to find new guitar thing. You become repetitious.
We had a live thing on YouTube. We do it every Friday night. I asked folks a few weeks ago. I was saying, what's the perfect BTO album? And you know what came up the most? Not Fragile. Not Fragile, not Fragile. I've told you when I met you the last time that Freeways, that album really hit me. It really, I was ready for it. I was at that point with the band personally that I went, when you guys came, I thought, wow, there's like so much going on this album. And I know that people call it the album that broke up BTO. But for me personally, I was ready for that album because I was into a lot of genres and a lot of things.
So was I, and so was radio. Radio was then playing disco.
Yeah.
They're playing long tracks by like Roundabout and stuff like that. They're really progressive rock. And I thought, I've got to get out of this thing. I mean, we should have broken up then. We should have dissolved. ZZ Top broke up. They toured the world. Doobie Brothers broke up. I mean, they just disbanded. Allman Brothers disbanded like for 4 and 5. Then they came back. I tried to keep going under the pressure, and going back to These Eyes days, got Ben McPeak to write the string arrangement for Easy Groove. Got some guy from Dr. Music in Toronto to write the horn charts for My Wheels Won't Turn. I had a lot of fun doing that. And music then, they took Listen to the Music by the Doobie Brothers and put a kick drum disco beat in it. And Elvis with Suspicious Mind, they did a disco version of Elvis. So I thought, I'm going to try to go with the trend here. I'm going to take a chance. I took a chance.
What did the band think?
By then, they were to the point which happens with most bands. A band, and because I financed the band, I produced the band, I gave them a salary so they wouldn't have to have a job, up to like $100 grand. This is in 1971 and 2. I said, this is my band. These are my rules. I'm your older brother. I will be a benevolent father or dictator, but you must keep my rules because I'm risking. I had 2 kids at the time and my house and mortgage. I'm paying you guys a salary, $175 a week to do nothing, sit around, get musical ideas, and don't work at a day job.
Were you living in the big house then?
No, this is back in Winnipeg before I left. And as you get popular and famous, and I said, look, I'm the songwriter. I'm writing songs for us. I'm going to write with you. I'm going to write with you because I'm smart enough to know I can't write 12 great songs that are all different. They're all going to be the same. So I bring a Fred Turner and I bring a Blair Thornton or my brother Tim or Robin. The song is a little bit of them and I tailor it a little bit and we'll have different kind of song. Suddenly it gets to album 3 and 4 and it's like, okay, there's 8 songs on an album. We want 2. Okay, what are you bringing? Oh, there's 12 songs. What are you bringing for your 130? What are you bringing for your 3 songs? Well, I've got 1 written. I'm going to write 2 more. Oh, Fred, what are you bringing for your 3 songs? Well, I've got 1.5 written. I'm going to write 1.5 more. Okay, I'm bringing 22 songs. Okay, out of my songs, we can pick 10.
You had 22 songs for Freeways?
For every album. I write songs. Every day I write songs. I just pick and choose the one that fit the project. If you called me and said, my daughter's 14, she's like Jewel, I said, great, I can write a song like Jewel. I'll produce your daughter, I'll do the album. I can write that. I've written everything. So everybody wants equal schmequal. So out comes 1 good song from one guy and 2 mediocre songs. When I write 10 or 12 or 15 songs, out of there, like 3 or 4 really good songs. So the album's got watered down. This happened with Creedence. John, I want to write a song. Okay, write a song. It's terrible. Yeah, but I want it on the album. So out comes whatever it was, Cosmos Factory, with a bunch of songs that go nowhere. And John Fogerty had the magic. How tough is it to stay on the John bus and ride another couple of miles and put another couple of million in your pocket, then do your own solo project, a vanity project that totally flops, but don't spoil the band. So that's what kind of happened. It started to happen on a 5th album, Head On, and then it really happened on Freeways. What happened in that period is somebody invented a thing called an eventide harmonizer. Do you know what that is? When it's at 0, it's at pitch. When you turn it to 0, it's digital. When you put a 0 + 1, it'll sharpen that note 1/100%. It'll sharpen it to 100s because it's all digital. So I remember playing back Head On for the band, which had Little Richard on it, playing a couple of songs. And I had heard them having a fight later saying, I thought you were going to sing flat and sharp on that song. So they told Fred to sing off key so the album wouldn't be done. They wanted their songs on the album. But I ran it through the harmonizer and on 1 syllable, I'd sharpen Fred's vocal or I'd flatten it on a vocal if he sang sharp. So I had everything in pitch and I had to do this thing by hand. I made notes. This lyric goes up +2, this go down +1. So everything was, so Head On came out, it was a pretty good album. Had some really good stuff. And then Total Sabotage with Freeways.
Yeah.
I think I wrote most of the songs. They all refused their songs unless I picked a whole bunch of their songs. And they were not really songwriters. They wrote songs, but they weren't songwriters. I've been writing songs since I was 10, 11, and 12. I had songs on the Guess Who album with Ashford and Simpson way back then. My songs were good enough to be on their thing. And Burt Bacharach loved my songs. I did Phil Ramone and Florence Greenberg.
Was there a defining moment that when you said, I got to leave, I got to go?
When we played, this was at Bruce Allen's house, I played, we had a tape recorder, played back Freeways on his album, on his system. And Fred Turner who's the spokesman for them, because I was not the spokesman anymore, said, with all due respect, what I hear on this album is another direction. And I said, yeah, I'm trying to, it's 1976, 77, everything's disco, everything's got horns and strings. I'm trying to change with the trend. The Doobies have done this, so-and-so has done that. I'm really trying here. And he said, we have clearly different directions. Maybe we should go our own separate ways. And I said, okay.
Jeez.
Done.
Did you listen to Street Action and Rock and Roll Nights?
Yeah.
What was your first reaction with Street Action, for instance?
It begins with MED and it has an I in the middle and ends with Kerr. It's mediocre. Even though they got a good bass player in Jim Valance, it missed something.
Jim Clench.
Jim Clench. Well, Jim Valance produced it.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah. Right from Bryan Adams. I mean, he's a buddy of Fred Turner. So they had Jim and Jim. Somehow it didn't match the weirdness I had. Because my edict with BTO, and I was copying these people, was to not sound like The Who, not sound like Creedence, not sound like anyone. And somehow out of 2 guitars, bass, and drums, I got my own sound that stands out today on radio. When I got asked by Sam Feldman to produce Trooper and did all those hits, We're Here for a Good Time, Raise a Little Hell, my edict was not to let them sound like BTO, and they don't.
No, they don't.
I helped Smith and McGuire write their song. They wrote great songs. I still show up today with them and play We're Here for a Good Time and Raise a Little Hell. They're still buddies of mine.
They're retiring.
They are Canada's top rock and roll party band.
Yeah.
And they're still touring.
Yeah, but they're retiring. They're going to stop touring. Smitty and Ray had said that Trooper will go on without them. Obviously, they'll license it out or whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's what Mick Jones did with Foreigner.
Yeah. What's your take on Neil? I mean, I'd heard you talk about Neil Young and the fact that Neil Young does things and other people can't get away with what Neil Young does. And he does things spur of the moment. I know that about him. But what's your take? Do you have an opinion on the Spotify thing?
I agree with one thing, and Spotify rips everybody off. I need 350,000 airplays there to get $10. They pay the biggies. I mean, Brian May doesn't need another $1 billion for 1 billion plays of bull rap. You know what I mean? Other guys like me or lesser guys than me need their money. I agree with that. They're underpaying everybody. And I don't agree with Neil's stance. I've had double vax. I will not get the booster. I've had whooping cough, double pneumonia, and COVID.
Wow. But
devastating, absolutely devastating. I will not get the booster, which they want to get, and I applaud the Canadian truckers, man. The farmers and the tractors. The little girl, did you see her? She walked up to a trucker. He was in tears, gave him a Ziploc. And it said, "Thank you for trying to change the world for us kids." She was 8. Here's a cookie. She gave him a cookie in the shape of a Valentine. The trucker was in tears. And I think Trudeau is like missing a great opportunity to make a great decision here and listen to the people. He's hiding out. He's not listening to the people. This is Prince and the Pauper. You got to go on the street and see, what are the paupers saying? Not what are the princes saying. Let's follow this guy in the States who makes up all these stupid rules, who owns all the patents on the drugs and everything and getting kickback from the drug. Let's do our own Canadian thing here. So I wish Trudeau would listen to the people. Give me a call. I'm available.
Will there ever be a BTO reunion? They all wanted me to ask this and I know the answer, but.
No, because of health reasons. I toured with Fred a couple of years ago with Bachman Turner. We got a call about 10 years ago to do Sweden Rock, the guy there loved BTO. We couldn't call ourselves BTO because my brother Robbie, I gave him the name when I left the band because my dad asked me to do so. And so we were just called Bachman Turner. We did a Bachman Turner album that's pretty BTO-ish. We played Sweden Rock to like 50,000 people with every heavy metal and rock band in the world. We then would play the High Voltage Fest, which was with the reunited ELP, Joe Bonamassa, Jimmy Page playing with the Black Crowes, every other AC/DC, every other British band. Fred Turner and I had a really great run as Bachman Turner. We put a really pretty good album. The climate was different. It was really different. Even now it's different.
Is Fred retired?
Yes, he lives in Winnipeg.
Okay.
Got a home in Florida and home in Winnipeg.
C. Jeff asks, can you ask Randy, this is interesting, the opening chord of Hard Day's Night, the Beatles influence him. A breakdown of the opening chord of Hard Day's Night.
If you Google that, I have it on YouTube.
Okay.
I'll show it to you if you want. Do you want me to show it to you?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Wait, I'm looking for a pic. Here you are in a guy's studio and he doesn't have a pic.
You're in the Lower Mainland, right?
Yes, I got invited to the studio by Giles Martin, who had come to my flat. I had a flat in London. We have the same chiropractor. So I'm going in, he's coming out. "Hi, man, how you doing? What do you do?" "I work with my dad." "Oh, what does your dad do?" "Oh, it's George Martin." "What?" "I have a flat. Do you want to come to my party?" So he comes to my flat party and he says, "In 2 days, I'm doing the mixes for Love, which is the Vegas thing for the Beatles thing there. And you want to come to the studio? I've got the whole suite." And I go, "Wow." So I go down to the studio and he said everything. And there's 2 guards at the studio, like with guns on the door. There's people that are from Japan taking pictures. A tour bus has arrived. So I say to him, "I want to hear John Lennon alone. I want to cry." So I heard the news today over. Just John Lennon alone with a little echo. And I'm in tears. Let me tune this. Then I say, "Okay, I want the world's most famous chord, Hard Day's Night." So I'm playing this on a Gretsch. country gentleman. I don't have a Rick 12 string here. It's out in my studio. So if you get a Rickenbacker 12 string, it's strung upside down. Most 12 strings have the high string first, then your octave, high octave. Rickenbacker's low string and then a high string with backwards. So your high strings have a longer ring chime than your first string. Understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's why Pete Townsend, when he plays Can't Explain on a 12 string, plays upstrokes. He goes, you hear the high string first. It's just a split second, but you hear it first. So you've got to be on a Rickenbacker 12 string. The chord you play is an F. Here, I'll show you. You put a G on top. Put a G on the bottom. Besides your F and your G, you play a C with your thumb. Paul plays a D on the bass. John plays a D sus4. On the piano, George Martin plays, which matches the bottom of the 12th string. So you get this. Also, that's the end of the song over the F chord. So if you Google that, you'll hear the whole thing. I did it live at a show in Toronto.
Did you meet any of the other guys?
Pardon me?
I know you worked with Ringo. Did you meet any of the other guys? You meet Paul or
no? I spoke with George on the phone a couple of times. I never met Paul, and I unfortunately never met John.
What were you talking shop with George?
When I left the Guess Who, he quit the Beatles. If you saw that documentary.
Yeah.
I had enough audacity to phone him. We shared a publicist at the time, Richie York, who you might have known, in Toronto, wrote for Billboard and a lot of magazines. And Richie York was like talking to me, even though I'd left the Guess Who. He's trying to, as was Larry LeBlanc, trying to find out the real story. So Richie York calls me up to get a quote on why I've left the Guess Who and what I'm doing. I'm going to the hospital for gallbladder treatment. And he says, George just quit the Beatles and he's jamming with a band in his Friar Park house. And I said, Richie, would you give me his phone number? I'd like to join his band. So, okay, he gives me the phone number. So I'm in Winnipeg. I phoned this number, this beautiful voice answered, which I imagine was Patty Boyd. Hello, I'm calling from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Is that where Winnie the Pooh's from? This is what she asked me. And I go, yes, because Winnie the Pooh's named after Winnipeg and he's in the London Zoo called Winnie the Pooh named after Winnipeg. And I go, yes. Is this Patty? Can I talk to George? Well, he's out in the garden with a bunch of musicians. It'll take me a while to get him. So I say, okay. So I'm waiting and waiting. I hear music going on. Then I hear it come, oh, this is George. Hi, George. My name's Randy Bachman. I just left the band called The Guess Who. Yes, I know American Woman. Yes. But you're starting a band. Can I come over there? Well, we've already got my buddy Eric playing in the band. I said, okay for that. And he was very nice. And many years ago, I went to Liverpool because a friend of mine was doing Let It Be there, the Beatles stage thing. And he did it on John Lennon's birthday. So I went there for John Lennon's birthday. I met John Lennon's half-sister. She gave me his glasses. I had his favorite birthday cake, which was a brownie with walnuts in it because he didn't like cake. And I went to the whole Beatles thing there. And then I thought, well, John has turned 75. When is George? George turned 75 2 years later. I did an album called By George, where I took all my favorite George songs and re-envisioned them as a tribute, as a songwriter to a songwriter, that I could take something the way she moved and do it like Robin Trower did Bridge of Sighs. Or I could take this particular George song and do it like a ZZ Top LaGrange and really pay tribute to him as a songwriter, not try to copy what he did, because you can't do any better than he and the Beatles. You can't, the magic only happens once, right? It comes out of the bottle, that's the trick. They may see David Copperfield do his trick 3 times. You figure out how he's done it, right? It's over. So that's like the whole story behind that thing.
So he's recording All Things Must Pass, and he leaves like the guys from Badfinger are there, and yeah, jeez, that's crazy.
Here's another thing. You asked me how, if you don't ask, you'll never get. Okay, You ask somebody, they go, oh, we didn't know you cared about that. Oh, we didn't know you wanted. Sure, you can have that, no problem. I start Vinyl Tap again March because I asked. I got canceled from CBC after 15 rocking years where I was top of the network, got canceled by the new guy who came in. I did an article because somebody asked me from the Globe and Mail and the Star, what's happening with your show? And I said, if anybody out there wants the show, ask me.
And
I'm now appearing on Classic Rock Network right across Canada on 4 different classic networks. I can't name them, but you know what they are. For the first time, they are not fighting. They're getting together. And on Saturday night from 7 to 9, Randy's Vinyl Tap is back. I'm recording them right now. I'm canning them because in March or April, I might be going to Japan and have to isolate there because we're doing the Gretsch trade then. So I'm biding my time and working here in my home studio, doing all this stuff. So when COVID came, it was a great opportunity for me to do Bachman and Bachman with my album, with my son, to do an album of all new stuff, for this Gretsch thing to come out. Now it's being a documentary being shot, for me to live into this beautiful place. You can see outside where I live.
Holy
I'm in the water here
turtles.
outside of Sydney, BC, with boats out there and fishing and stuff. And it's 51 above here today. With my own little home studio. I recorded the album, amazingly enough, in Seattle at Bear Creek Studios with Ryan Hadlock, whose father was a piano player with Norman Durkee back in Taking Care of Business. They did commercials together. And Ryan Hadlock produced the Lumineers, Hey Ho Hey, and Brandy Carlisle. And we went there in June, Tal and I, we did our album there at Bear Creek Studios, which is where Woodinville, it's in Woodinville, which is where I did the Seattle Pop Festival in 1969. So for me, it was a return to this weird, well, here I am in Woodinville. Wasn't the Seattle Pop Festival in that field? Yeah. Who was on Seattle Pop? 10 years after. Led Zeppelin, their first tour, Sly and the Family Stone, The Byrds, the Guess Who were on all 3 days, Bo Diddley, Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis. It's a Beautiful Day, Chicago Transit Authority before they were Chicago. This is now going to be part of my new radio show, telling my history, like I just told you, from the age of 5 on violin to discovering, because people are saying, who in the F are you? How can you do this show? I've been on the road since I'm 16, 17. I backed up the Crystals, the Ronettes, the Kingsmen. I've played on shows with everybody. I have a story about them that you've never heard yet, just like I've told you now. So I tell the story about meeting Duke Ellington, which is like cool. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't know who he is, or Frank Sinatra, or hanging out with Jimmy Page and wanting to play my guitar, and me wanting to play his. Me playing with Robert Plant and Jimmy, and I'm playing with Bo Diddley saying, hey, Bo, I brought you something. I brought you the poster from the Seattle Pop Festival, which shows your grandkids that you played with Led Zeppelin and 10 years after, and Sly and the Guess Who. Oh man! And both I take the same poster and show it to Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, who want to show their kids that and their buddies. They played with Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry. Everybody wants everybody's thing. So these stories go on in my life. That my New Young story starts when we were 14 or 15. It goes on when I recorded Prairie Town with him. It goes on when he sent me an email a month ago saying, glad you got your Gretsch back, man. Keep me in on your Gretsch thing. We all are connected through these wonderful internet, basically. And I appreciate every relationship I've had with these guys and all the fans I've got out there who stay in touch with me.
When you were waiting to leave, when we did the live interview, I asked her, hey, you're going to work with Burton again. You were just at the lobby. And you said, well, it depends, because Burton wants $2 million for every $1 million I make, or use something like that, you said. And I said, so you're not going to do it? And you told me something that I've never forgotten. And you went, no, I'll do it because that's found money. Why would I not do that? You know, I've gotten over that. I'm okay with that now. How have you two maintained your very different personalities? I mean, this is more than don't sweat the small stuff. How you guys make it work?
It's a mutual respect and love of falling in love with each other as teenagers over trying to be Lennon and McCartney, trying to be Jagger and Richard, trying to be Brian Wilson, trying to be Bacharach and Dave, over trying to write songs and writing and creating those songs. Those songs are the glue that hold us together. And I made up my mind long ago, don't let your personal BS interfere with business. When I play with Burton, it's business. we celebrate our songs. We've got 15 or 20 great songs together. He's got 10 great on his own. I've got 10 great on my own. We go and celebrate the songs. We celebrate for the fans. We get our money. We go home. It's business.
Yeah. Well, by the way,
he lives in Moose Jaw. I live in Sydney.
Yeah, he lives in Moose Jaw. The weird, when you told me that, I've told that story to a lot of people, just personal one-to-one, because I'm going, don't let your ego get stuck in it. I have accepted so many projects in my life from that small conversation you and I had at the door of the radio station, because I'm going, why would I not? It's found money. Why would I not do that? I'm not going to get all, don't you know who I am? Oh my God, so there you go.
Well, the bully in your high school who kicked you in the balls once and threw you on the ground, 10 years later comes and says, I want you to work for my firm. I'm going to pay you 200 grand a year. You can't say, you're the guy who kicked me in the nuts. Yeah, I'll take the job. Yeah, okay. It's business.
Yeah. What was the lowest? What was your highest point in your career?
I wasn't cutthroat enough. I was too nice a guy. When I left the Guess Who, when I left BTO, I just walked. I gave away the name. I owned the name Bachman and Overdrive. I owned BTO. I owned that whole thing. Nobody else could afford it. I copywrote it and trademarked and patented it because of my dad, who was very ill at the time. Said, your brother needs to make a living, blah, blah, blah. Give him the name, give him BTO. I gave it to them. They went on 4 or 5 years without me and basically spoiled my career.
Highest point?
Yeah. Highest point. Probably the SARS Fest, when everything was shut down, just like it is now, with this triumphant thing outside in Barrie, the Speedway, with the Stones, AC/DC, Timberlake, Tom Cochrane, and me with the Guess Who, when I am doing my songs. When I went out on that stage, which is 12 feet high, and I'm 6 feet tall, so my eyes are at 18 feet, and to look out at 500,000 people as far as the horizon, back and left and right. And when I said, put your hands in the air, I want to hear some noise. And they screamed, taking care of business. That was like, oh my God, who's pouring this pail of adrenaline over my head? It's like not a shot of, this is like unbelievable. My daughter at the time was about 8 or 9. She was at the side of the stage. And I said, what did it look like when they all put their hands in the air? So from a 9-year-old's point of view, she said, it looked like a giant McDonald's French fries, because there was all these hands up in the air that were all suntanned, sticking out of the McDonald's French fry thing, that was her thing. But to see 500,000 French fries sticking out, I mean, 1 million, there's like obviously 2 hands to every person, 1 million hands in the air. And me doing TCB was unbelievable. And the 2 times the album and single were #1. I mean, those are very far between, unachievable kind of things. And I did them both, did them all.
Van Halen, someone asked me to talk to you about touring with Van Halen. What was that like?
That was amazing. It was a 3-day weekend that turned into 10.5 months. I had written some songs with Sammy Hagar. I heard the rumors, and one day my phone rang. I'd been on a 90-day tour with BTO, just me and Turner. And we were done. He was having trouble with teenage kids. I was having trouble with my teenagers, because you got a wife at home of like 2 or 3, 4 teenagers. And teenagers do. It's hard enough as a couple, never mind alone. And my phone rings at noon on a Friday. I've gotten home Thursday night. My phone rings at noon Friday. Randy, it's Samala. Yeah? Would you come and open for for Van Halen? I'm the new lead singer. I don't want anybody yelling, where's Dave? I want a band that'll play 30 minutes of hit song. We always have a popcorn band. You have a band that plays nothing. So everyone's buying popcorn and merch. I don't want a popcorn. I want a band to play 30 minutes of hit songs. I don't think Fred can make the tour. He's home with problems. All I want is you. Do you sing TCB? Do you sing, can you sing Let It Ride? Do you sing Ain't Seen Nothing Yet? You sing Looking Out for #1? Can you sing American Woman? Yeah, I can sing anything. Okay, I just want you. So I went out as BTO with Van Halen. They said I could bring my kids. I said, I can't leave my kids for because the 3 days, like I said, has to be 10.5 months. I want to bring my kids for a week at a time. They said, fine. So I brought Tal for a week. He hung out with Eddie. I brought my other daughter to Seattle and stuff. They hung out with Eddie and Val. And a wonderful thing happened to me on this tour. I think the World's Fair was on, or some sort of world celebration. We were in Knoxville, Tennessee, and the place was sold out. And we're staying in a Holiday Inn and or something, and the basement was all suites. And this is in the middle of the tour. Val and Eddie are having this romance where she's coming to gig. She's still doing a TV show. He does the solo out front where he sits on stage. She comes out and adores him. It was really cool. It was really nice. And we got to know them all. It was really a family environment. And one day in Knoxville, Tennessee, my phone rings. It's like 3 a.m. I pick it up like, yeah. Randolph? Nobody calls me Randolph except, yes, this is Randolph. Edward. Nobody calls him Edward. Eddie? Yes. Come downstairs, room 2AB. What? Now. I throw on his sweatshirt. I go downstairs. He's sitting out in the hall. He comes up with a little classical guitar. And he says, I just got word my best friend committed suicide. They found him in the garage with a bunch of my albums in his lap, and he's passed away. And while he's moving, I want to play music for him. Would you sit here and listen to the music? So I sit there, and on this little classical guitar, he plays the most amazing music I've ever heard in my life. Everything classical and jazz, and he's playing for his friend, and he's crying, and I'm crying. And it's very emotional. And other people are hearing the noise because we're in the hallway on the floor. And other guys are opening the door to say, what the? And they're hearing the reverence of the moment at the church, and they sit down. This goes on for about a half an hour. I didn't have a tape recorder. All I have is my memory and the wonderful connection with Randolph and Edward.
That's one of the most beautiful stories I've ever heard in my life. Thank you for, my God, thank you for sharing that.
If you want to hear some of that, play Spanish Fly and that other thing where he's going crazy on guitar. That's what it was like for a half an hour. Stuff I would never hear again, stuff he maybe never ever played again.
Do you have a belief in the afterlife? By the way, I ask every artist this. Like I ask every artist, Richie Furay, you know, he lost a few people from Poco, and I talked to him 2 days later. He's a great interview, always really good. And
yeah, I think we all came from somewhere to school here, University of Earth, and we're going back. When you know you met someone, you never met him, you met him before. You met a woman, you go, this is amazing. You're my soulmate, or you're my soulmate. We must have met in the pre-life, and we'll meet again in the afterlife. No harm in believing that. It's a wonderful feeling of security. I came from here as a child. This is my school, my university. I got the University of the Guess Who, University of Hard Knock, University of BTO, the University of Denise, the University of Lorraine, your wives, your ex-wives, the University of my whatever. And I'm now educated. I know some stuff. I'm a better person, and I'm going to go back and meet them.
Yeah. Well said.
Nothing wrong with believing that.
No.
It gives you you know, when you hit the bottom, and everybody does, I hit it a couple of times, there's nowhere to go but up. And where do you look to go up? You look for a greater power, and you find it. You know it's there. Whether it's in you or outside of you, somehow it exists. So wherever it is, who knows what God looks like? You know, nobody knows. But everybody has their own version and vision, and that's good. That's what you cling to.
Yeah.
Like your good luck piece is a rabbit's foot or four-leaf clover, horseshoe, whatever that is. It is what it is.
If you want to see the specific segments, they're all on Rock History Music, the YouTube channel, as well as Rock History Canada, older interviews we did with Randy Bachman. I want to thank him for spending 2 hours with us. Pretty cool. I'm John Beaudin. This is Rock History Book.